Hi, welcome to Wise Guys. This video is on factoring general trinomials, and it's a second video, and we're working on trinomials that are just a little bit more complicated. So just a reminder of when you multiply two factors. So here we have two factors, and when we multiply them we use the FOIL method. So the first two, and then the outer multiplied by the inner, which is here, and then the last. Okay. Now the reason this is important is it helps us to figure out how we solve more complex trinomials. So we know when we multiply these through, so the 2x times the x gives us a 2x squared. The 2x times the minus 4 gives us the minus 8x. Then the inner, the 3 times the x gives us plus 3x. And the last, the 3 times the minus 4 gives us the minus 12. And when we add it all up, we end up with this. Now notice the minus 8x is when we're multiplying the two outer pieces together, all right? And the 3x happens when we add, or when we multiply the 3 times the x, so the inner pieces, right? And these two add together to give us our middle term. So when I'm walking through this question, this is sort of what I'm thinking about, is how do we solve for this piece? So now, if I want to factor this, our trinomial, I first start with my brackets. Then I always start with this first one. What do I need here for the 2x? So I'm going to make it easy for myself. 2x and an x. Now whenever I'm working on a question like this and it feels a little bit more difficult, I'm a little more unsure about what to do here, I always start by multiplying these two constants together. So the 2 times the 12, and that gives me 24. Then I ask myself, what times what gives me 24? Well, I know 6 times 4 gives me 24. I know 8 times 3 gives me 24. And I know 12 times 2. And there may be more, but this is good enough for now. Then I ask myself, which one of those combinations, either added or subtracted, will give me a 5? And that's this, the 8 and the 3. All right? So then the next thing I do is I look at my 12. So the last term here, because that's what I need to be figuring out about what goes on here. So what times what is going to give me 12? Well, 4 times 3 will give me 12. 6 times 2 will give me 12. And 12 times 1, but I'm not going to use that. Yeah, I may in some cases, but I'm really paying attention to the fact that I need a 3 here. And I'm noticing this one, the 4 and the 3. I'm not going to use this because I don't have a 3 in this possibilities for 12. All right. So I want these two to add together to give me the 5. And I'm going to use these two for the numbers that will go here. All right. Now I have to decide, where does the 3 go and where does the 4 go? Well, I want 8. So then if I put the 4 here, that will be multiplied by this and I will get an 8. So I'm going to put the 4 here and the 3 here. Now, of course, if I had done it differently, if I'd have put the 6 here, or not the 6, the 3 multiplied by the 2 would give me a 6, and that's not what I'm looking for. So, and again, I could be wrong here, but I'm thinking this is probably the way it's going to work. Now I have to think about the signs. Have a minus 12 here, that tells me these two signs are different. So either a negative and a positive, or there's a negative here and a positive here. I also notice that it's a minus 5x. So that means when these two are added together, I end up with the larger number being negative. So that means that the 2 times the 8, that 8x should be the negative. So then that tells me that the sign, the negative sign, probably goes there. Not positive, but I think it might. So I put the negative in front of the 4, and I put the plus here. Then, normally what you do is you walk through the question again, ask yourself, do the whole piece, and see if it actually is correct. We know it's correct because we have the correct answer up here. So this is the approach that I'm going to use through the other questions. So this is right. All right, so let's move on to the next question, or actually the first one. Excuse me. So the first thing we do when we're looking at these is we ask ourselves, is there a common monomial? We can see by looking at this that there is, and it's a 2. So we can see there's a 2 in every term. So we pull out the 2, and we're left with 10q squared plus 19q plus 6. Now, again, I multiply the first and the last constant, and I end up with 60. Then I ask myself, what times what will give me 60? So I know 20 times 3 will give me 60, 10 times 6, 30 times 2, 15 times 4. Probably more options, but I'm seeing this, 15 in the 4, and the relationship to 19. So I'm thinking the numbers that I have to be looking for are these two. So now I have this piece figured out. I start just with my brackets. And again, this is a trial and error method, so you have to be willing to muck about a little bit, not always know what you're doing. Here, in these two places, I need these two to be multiplied together to get a 10, in order to get a 10, right? But I'm looking at the numbers that I'm needing, and I'm seeing a 15 here. So that suggests to me that I'm not going to put a 10 in here. I should put in a 5, because with a 10, I'm not going to end up with a 15, right? So then I'll say, all right, so I'm going to put a 5q here and a 2q here. All right? Now, for the 4, what am I going to do? Now here at this point, I look at my 6. All right? In order to get a 6, I need either a 3 times 2, that's a possibility, 6 times 1, that's about all there is, right? And when I'm looking at this, taking it back to this, which is the numbers I need, the 15 and the 4, I know I've used a 5 here. So that makes me think, well, I probably need that 3 in order to get the 15. So in order to get 6, I'm going to use the 3 and the 2. All right? So then I have to decide where the 3 and the 2 go. If I put a 2 here, the 2 will be multiplied by the 5, and that will give me a 10. And I don't need that. I need a 15. So then I'm thinking I'm going to put the 3 here and the 2 here. Again, those two multiplied together will give me the 6. I'm also noticing that the signs are both positive, which is really nice, because then we know that there's just a plus here and a plus here. But at this point, we're still not sure that we're right. So you do a check. So the 2 is out front. 5q times 2q, 10q squared. 5q times 3, so plus 15q, which is what we needed, right? These two multiplied, plus 4q, and the 2 times the 3, plus 6. So we end up with 2 times 10q squared plus 19q plus 6. We check and see if we're right. Yeah. So this then is the correct factors. Okay. Last question here. So again, the first thing we do is stop and ask ourselves, is there a common monomial? First thing I'm seeing is the 15 and the 12. So I say, well, I know there's a 3 there, but what about here? Yeah, there's 24 is also divisible by 3. So I can pull out the 3. And here I have 5l squared plus 8lm minus 4m squared. Now again, I take the first constant, multiply it by the last one, and I end up with 20. Then I ask myself, what times what will give me 20? Well, I know that 5 times 4 will give me 20. I know that 10 times 2 will give me 20. So these two numbers add up to the 8. So then those are the numbers that I'm focusing on to get this 8lm. So then put the 3 out front in our brackets. Fortunately for 5l, we only have one option, and that's 5l and an L. Now I have to think about what do I need to get the 4. So 4 times 1 or 2 times 2. Now sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Okay, so we need the 2. That means that and we need them to multiply together to make the 4. The 2 in here multiplied by the 5 will give us a 10, which is what we need, right? So that tells us that instead of using a 4 and a 1, we're using the 2 and the 2. So this becomes a 2m and a 2m. Now we have to ask ourselves about the signs. We notice there's a minus in front of the 4, so that tells us the signs are different. So negative and positive, or a negative here and a positive here. If I put the negative in front of this 2, this gets multiplied by the 5l, and that gives me a minus 10. And I notice that this is not a negative. So I'm guessing that the negative goes here and the positive goes here. So then what we do is just multiply through and see if we're okay. 3 out here. 5l times l is 5l squared. 5l times 2m is plus 10lm. These two multiplied, minus 2lm. And these two multiplied, we end up with minus 4m squared. So we have 5l squared plus 8 LM minus 4M squared. Then we stop and check. Are we okay? Yes, we're okay. So then these are the factors. Okay? All right. So that has been brought to you by Wise Guys. I hope you have a great day. Take care.